I am Joshua Walker, and I wear many hats. I am a roadie. I love road racing and everything that it entails because it has both the combination of you have to be dedicated and put in the time, put in the work to be a strong athlete, and the tactics that it involves. You can't just be the strongest one out there. But having a 5.6 watts per kilo FTP does help with that. I also really enjoy the community aspect of things and how you can talk to other people on the ride. And I'm especially grateful for the Masters athletes that have become personal mentors in my life. I am a coach. I'm a coach for you, and I'm a coach for myself. I love digging into the research. I have over 2,000 hours of research, and I love communicating that with my athletes and telling them the why behind the training that they are doing. I also love the personal connection that I get with the athlete. I have over 6 athletes plus myself, ranging from a middle school athlete in ACA all the way up to a 36-year-old competing for a personal best in an Ironman. I'm a mountain biker. I like to say that I'm a roadie who does mountain biking to fit in. But over these past few years, I've really grown my technical skill. But that's not my favorite part about mountain biking. I love the connections that I've made, especially on the mountain bike team. I thoroughly enjoy being able to mentor those younger than me. And one of my favorite part of the whole ACA program is the fact that we get to cheer on our teammates whenever they're racing and just the community that is built behind that. I'm a student. I have a 3.77 GPA. I got a 31 on my ACT. I'm accepted into honors programs at all the universities I've applied to, and I'm looking forward to a degree in exercise science and sports management. It has been my goal for several years now to become a professional cyclist. I know, new story, haven't heard that from anyone, but I really struggled with how to make the next step. I contemplated taking a gap year out of high school and just training super hard, but I finally landed on going to a university with a varsity cycling program. And this will allow me to grow my strengths as a cyclist and as a teammate and my knowledge of the sport, while also getting a degree in exercise science and sports or business management. Right now, I unfortunately do not have the equipment to compete in these races. I only have a road bike, mountain bike, and trainer. I have been able to compete in races such as Skyway, that's mostly gravel, on my mountain bike, but it's still a very large disadvantage. And I would really love to get into the gravel scene and start racing, but the travel is also a difficult logistic. Being over here on the East Coast, a lot of these races are Kansas or Utah or Colorado, and that's logistically not possible for me at this time, just from the cost of entry fees, travel, and lodging. I know that you have likely received a plethora of applications. So, what am I bringing to the table that might be different than other people? And I believe that is my sustainable plan with being a coach. And that means that after this program, when I am looking to become a professional gravel racer and I do not have the suitable means, I will be able to support that through my coaching business. The next thing that will set me apart is my drive for this sport and my dedication. I started out, I didn't have a coach. I wanted to use that money to save for college and to save for race entry fees. And so I did the research myself. I knew a training plan was not going to cut it. Just something I bought from someone, copy and paste, not going to cut it. So I did the research and I was able to self-coach to become the best athlete possible. And I overcame what was against me. Next are my replicable results. While I don't have a gravel bike that's held me back from having gravel specific results, I do have the 12 hours of Iron Maiden, which showed that I can race for a long time and dig deep at the end. I have Skyway, which is actually top 3 on the podium. We're all on gravel bikes. So I was able to race that on my mountain bike at what you'd say is a disadvantage and still come away with the junior course record and place 5th overall. And that would be replicable. If I had the gravel bike, I can race Skyway this year on the gravel bike, and that would be exciting. And my training has really shown that I can put in the effort and the work and make gravel sustainable and a place where I can get the results in. And finally, what makes me stand apart is my pursuit of knowledge. I am looking to go to college, I have my coaching business, and I'm currently writing a thesis that will end up likely being up to 20 pages, all about the optimal training intensity distribution. And I will always look for the optimal form of training and the optimal form of racing, and that analytical side will allow me to perform well. Back in 2022, I had the crazy idea that I wanted to race the 12 hours of Iron Maiden. I really wanted to raise money for Bicycle MS. It's a charity kind of local to the Southeast. And I had the idea that in conjunction with the race, I could also raise money. So I was super stoked for the race. Going into it, I had almost $1,000 raised for Bike MS, which was crazy. So I pulled up to the start line. It's a sunny day, perfect weather, and we start the race. I get about 1.5 miles in, and my pedal explodes. Like, the pedal came off of the pedal body. It was not fun. So I messed with it on the trails. Like, can I put this back together? And I was like, it's not going back together. So I rode back to the start one-legged. I looked around, asked everybody. Nobody had Crank Brothers pedals, which is what I had. And finally, somebody was willing to loan me their time pedal. But of course, the problem with that is I didn't have a time cleat. So we had to move over the pedal, move over the cleat. And I had over a 30-minute disadvantage whenever I started the race. Not how you want to start. But I kept racing. I was like, no, it's a 12-hour race. Too early to quit, right? Haven't even started. Way too early to quit. So I kept racing. It went well, but then with 2 laps to go, I look at the cue sheet and I'm 30 minutes behind 3rd place. So I was like, no, we're not going to let this happen. I knew it was unlikely, but I was going to push anyway. So I dug super deep and I made up the 30 minutes and ended up getting 3rd place. And I was a 1st place junior, but in the men's open category, I got 3rd place by just 90 seconds in a 12-hour race. That was back in 2022, and that was a mountain bike race. It's a lap race, so it's mentally difficult, but it really taught me a lot, and it taught me that no matter what happens in a race, you can still push back, and it's never too late to stop. But in road racing, it's a little bit different because you get off the back and you're done. But my longest pure mileage, so that one was, I don't know, like 110 miles, something along those lines. But my longest pure mileage would be a training ride I did. I was preparing for my goal event. I just had an injury. I was on the trainer for a while. and I had a 4-week block before I had to taper into my A event. So I was hitting a couple centuries a week, really trying to get the training load back up. And one of the epic rides that I did before my recovery week was 155 miles. And I had the idea, I'm going to go out, ride to, it's like a charity Grand Fondo. It was 100 miles. I was gonna ride there, strict endurance, like right at the 200, 210 watts, do the race, and then ride back home. It ended up being 155 miles, and honestly, that's one of the power files that I'm most proud of. The deciding part was a climb called Walker's Gap. It's going up to the top of Pine Mountain. And despite all this fatigue in my legs, because everybody else was 50 miles in, I was nearly 80 miles in. I was with one other person at the top. We were the top two. And then I pushed on. I was actually solo off the front for 10 miles. And I was able to finish, and I finished. Me and one other person had a breakaway for the last 20 miles. We broke away from a group of 6 that formed after the gap. And we rode in together, and then I turned around and rode back. And I was super happy because I was still, after all this fatigue in my legs, I kept strict endurance on the way home. I think I averaged 212 watts. And finally, one more endurance mountain bike race. This is the Skyway Epic 100. It's actually called the 100-ish because it's 109 miles. And those last 9 miles of single track are really long. But I was able to set the junior course record for this. I beat the previous time by 30 minutes. And it wasn't kind of like the 12 hours of Iron Maiden. And I really learned a lot from the 12 hours of Iron Maiden. It was not without its adversity, because it was one of the worst years of Skyway. They had to delay it 2 hours because it was thundering and lightning when we were supposed to start. The whole trails were flooded, so it wasn't the best conditions for a course record. But 2 miles into the single track, on the mountain bike portion of this race, I crashed, was fully submerged in a puddle. It was super slippery, so I just slid out. And the lead group dropped me, so through the whole gravel, I wasn't able to draft or anything. Yeah, I rode the whole thing except for 15 miles solo, and the top 3 overall were all on gravel bikes, but I managed to do it on my mountain bike and still win junior, set the course record, and come 5th overall. That had 12,000 feet of climbing too. Let's move on to my rider type. I would classify myself as more of a diesel or a puncher. You've just heard from some of my race stories that I have a very solid diesel engine, and I train that, and I can train that even more. Really, the ability to push hard at the end of a hard workout is something that I've trained, and something that I know is very important for gravel races. And then the puncher side of things, that's more of a roadie term, but that's especially where I'm strong. It's my 30-second to 10-minute VO2 max power. That is my bread and butter. And you can look at my power file and see that, but that's where I'm strongest. And since I'm pretty lightweight, that also translates the diesel for long climbs and the short for punchy climbs, combined with my lightweight, makes me a very solid climber. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am very excited that people are investing in young athletes like myself, and even if I don't get this, I'm very excited for the athletes that get to go on this journey and try to become a professional cyclist. I hope to see you in March. I gonna have to grow out my leg hair to embrace the whole spirit gravel thing if I get this?
Bro, what?